From the center of the galaxy, this is ForceCenter show about Star Wars pop culture and the ultimate adventure, life itself, he said ominously. I'm Ken Napzok.
We are going to be talking about Palpatine later, and it feels like Ken was briefly taken over. Life itself. I'm Joseph Scrimshaw.
I feel like this should be a Halloween episode, and I'm Jennifer Landa.
Well, we're almost there. Don't worry. We're almost there. We're almost to the holidays. Don't look at the calendar. Don't look at the calendar. Do it too many times. Hey, we're going to get into our Cues of the Force. We've got a couple questions picked out from you, our audience, our faithful supporters, Patreon. We got some great questions. Some of them we've been sitting on for a bit, so we're excited to finally get to them. Before we get to that, go to remind you that today's podcast is brought to you by Audible. Get a free audiobook download and a 30-day, that's a 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/ForceCenter. Over 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player. We're recommending Rebel Rising by Beth Revis to download your free audiobook today and try that book out on us or listen to it again for the first time. Go to audibletrial.com/ForceCenter. Again, that's audibletrial.com/ForceCenter for your free audiobook. I'm trying to strike the balance between sincerity and, hey, this is part of the business of reading these ads. I went down a thread I found of a bunch of people not criticizing us, but criticizing someone I know for bad ad reads. I thought, is that a thing? Are y'all concerned about bad ad reads? Well, it just sounds like he doesn't care. I mean, I care about Audible and I care about supporting the show, so I'm trying to be as sincere as I can. Again, it wasn't about us, but I was like, is that out there? Is that out there?
Yeah, I could see people being worn down by well-delivered ad reads that are clearly devoid of emotion, right? Of just like, this is smooth and well said, but my eyes are dead.
Yep.
And I think you did something very important today, Ken. We've been reading this exact copy for what feels like 72 years, and is actually something like 7 or 8 years or whatever it is, 6 years. Right. And for no apparent reason, you decided to really emphasize 30-day like it was the most important part of the copy. And I think that's great. I think that we need to do to freshen it up. We should just, pick random parts of it to really celebrate, to keep it fresh.
I think so. What happened in the middle of my mind, I thought, well, what about July? You screwed in July? 31st day is out. Major League Baseball trading deadline. You got no book to listen to? Like, come on. What do we get?
Yeah, it's a bounty for February. This is is a deal for people who love February. That's all. That's all it is. Did you said the book we're recommending, right?
Beth Revis's Rebel Rising.
That's right. Okay, I just got too excited. All right. Moving on to the asks then, correct?
Yes. Sorry, I was making sure it was on the right page again. We are looking towards the asks. And Joseph, what are the asks?
We are trying to build back up on Patreon. Patreon really is the backbone of our financial world here to keep ForceCenter going and growing. And we have dipped a little bit in our numbers, understandably, a lot going on. We appreciate everyone's support over the years, but we would love to get back up to 400 paid subscribers. So if you're interested in checking it out, one of the big things that we can offer is access to the Discord. So if you want a place to be able to have fun and friendly conversations about Star Wars and many other things, you can be joining that Discord. Where Jennifer, you're spending some time on Discord. What are your thoughts on the value of the ForceCenter Discord?
It's a wonderful community where news is broken, which I really appreciate as it happens. People are sharing their, the things that they find, just supporting each other. It's a really great community. So thanks for letting me be a part of it.
So those are the asks.
Those are the asks. We are going to get to some Qs, some A's and Qs here today. Joseph, we got this one I know we've been looking to try to get at for a while. And the dark side slides in to the podcast here. Let's dive in deeper to the dark side.
That is right. The adventure of life itself. We've got some great questions that we put out a request to patrons on Patreon, and some of them are a little bit older. It takes us a little while to get to them sometimes. And some of the choosing is about kind of which question goes well with what other question, what's going on in the world, what's going on in our lives. And it was waiting for the right time for this one. Comes to us from the user Lack of Response. Here is the question. Great podcasters, I must call once again on your knowledge of the Force. I was enjoying the Teach/Corrupt episode of The Acolyte, and something about Chimere's sales pitch left me wondering, is the dark side really as bad as the Jedi make it out to be? Putting all your fear, anger, and sadness to use sounded pretty practical. It kept Maul alive after he was fatally wounded and left on a planet with no healthcare. Palpatine always looked so happy, and just imagine the good it could do for someone like Cyril Karn, who has had all the hope beaten out of him and only ever smiled when his mother made him. If somebody was selling a way to do something with anger, sadness, and fear other than let them eat away at you from the inside, they could shut up and take my money, says Lack of Response. What about you? This is a great, I think, way and a great time to discuss what the dark side has to offer. If people are handing out pamphlets, can we believe them? What do we think? What do we get out of it? Ken, where do you start with this question?
I'll start here. I think there's some great humor in here, intentional or otherwise, of Palpatine looks so happy. He does at times. He does. He does. I want to give Palpatine credit. He seems to have found his own happy place that he goes to when he's swirling in darkness. I understand a lot of these emotions being used as motivators, and I don't want to put any words into Lack of response here or question about saying they're motivators, but I don't mind getting a little pissed. There's in the beginning of Roxanne, Steve Martin runs into the great comics, Rich Schneider and Kevin Nealon, and he fights them, and one of them's like, get pissed, Rich, get pissed. And I think it's a great example, but it's about where it leads and all that kind of stuff. We'll get to it. There's, to me, this idea of, but you want to process this. You want to work through this. You want to understand it. I never run away from these emotions, but you don't want to simmer in them. And I think there's the pitch from the dark side is to stew in it, to simmer in it, and to never let this go. And I think that's where the danger is. But I just experienced this recently. I was in Little Rock doing comedy with Mark Ellison, and after the second night, the owner of the club, he just didn't like me, and he came up to me and he said some things. And basically, it kind of said, if it was up to me, I kind of wouldn't let you back up doing that stuff. And I was angry, right? I was angry. And I spent the next day. I used to be sad. I used to hear that and be like, he is right. You know what, Mark? I'm going to fly back. I'm going to leave. I'm done. I'm going to retire. And instead, I got angry. But maybe it's not about anger, but it's about knowing your self-worth and knowing that I had been treated below my self-worth level, right? I deserve more than that. But I'm going to, for my own benefit and the benefit of the show, I'm going to prove to myself that no, that was wrong. The take on what was happening was wrong, and I'm going to do it for myself as opposed to being angry and I'll show him. I think that's the danger for me is I'll show him. How about I'll show yourself? How about you process what is happening when someone says something to you when you get angry there's also a fear that they're right. There's also a fear that the truth has been revealed. And I have to sit back sometimes and take what is the real criticism, because there was some things I understood he was saying. It was the way in which he did it that upset me. And I course corrected in some of my material. There was a couple beats that just weren't working. It's really all this simply was. And instead of cowering or instead of becoming someone who I'm not on stage, I doubled down on who I was and had a great set Friday night. And that was healthier than anger. But I understand you could just simply say, I was inspired by anger that morning when I woke up. But when you break it down, I don't think I was. I let go of the anger and found a better way forward. That's where I start with this very Star Wars-y question through the lens of comedy.
Well, and I think that's what's so valuable about these kind of questions is we can absolutely analyze them in the context of Star Wars. And I think Lack of Response brings up some great things about, they kept people alive. How do you wrestle with that? So we can talk about it in a real like Star Wars lore storytelling context. But for me, the most valuable is it's a myth, and it's not just about space wizards. It's about how we choose to answer in email or deal with a comedy manager or handle a test not going our way or an unfair grade. And like it's about all those things of how do we handle them and what is beneficial to ourselves. And I think for me, maybe the Star Wars version of what you went through with that, Ken, is you felt the anger and you made a productive choice that benefited yourself. In that it's, I think, the Star Wars version of the dark side. The dark side would say that it's going to help you. You do better comedy when you're angry. So use the anger. And whenever a Sith is pitching the dark side, they leave it at that. They leave it at, it'll help you do this one thing. And if that manager was a Sith master, you went out on stage, you did the job you wanted to do, they would insult you again and try to bring you down again and try to keep you in constant pain, instead of going, hey, the anger helped you once, you learned a lesson. The lesson is anger's healthy, process it, use it beneficially, move on. That's what the Sith put on the pamphlet. That's not the truth. It's a lie. It's they want you to be in pain and misery and anger forever. You know, if Palpatine was your buddy, he wouldn't say do a better stand-up. He'd say use Force lightning on the comedy booker, which I don't think would have benefited you in the long run.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because in the weird postscript story is he was not there the rest of the weekend. He did not show up, so he didn't see me kill Friday night. But I bet if he did, there would have been like a, see, I told you I was right about you. And that would have made me more angry, you know?
Yep.
And I would have just been in that cycle.
Yeah, it's not about you. It's his desire to control. Jennifer, where do you start with this in any stand-up comedy stories that you have in relation to the dark side?
Oh, you know, I think that the reason why I loved The Acolyte so much is that throughout Star Wars, the Sith it's been two extremes, right? The Jedi and the Sith. And it's like, well, obviously we're going to choose the Jedi. You know, we know that the Jedi are good. But what The Acolyte did was it kind of showed the in-between and the temptations of the dark side, where it's like, yeah, if you have suffered a trauma, big T or little t, it is unnatural to not acknowledge those feelings, to like try and suppress it or ignore it, which is kind of what makes the Jedi kind of, it seems like that's what they want you to do, right? Like ignore it. Just kind of speaking generally. Whereas the Sith are like, no, use it. You have this stuff. Yeah, you deserve to be upset. You deserve to be angry and scared and whatever. And I'm like, yeah, that's true. So if we were to apply it to our real world, first you have to recognize the feeling, right? Why am I feeling? What am I feeling? Why am I feeling like this? And how am I going to act on it? And the problem with the Sith is that if they have a problem with someone, a conflict, they're not going to go and have a conversation and try and hash it out for good. They're going to go and kill a person. And obviously that's not very helpful to lash out and hurt other people in that way. And
making a note of that, killing.
But you know what? Here's the thing, you guys, is like when people are hurt and they may not go and like stab someone with a lightsaber, but they may lash out at them online. Right? Because it feels good. I'm angry. I'm frustrated. I'm going to lash out at you online. But what happens is that over time, you don't feel so good. You become more isolated. You start like living in that kind of stewing place, and everything just makes you angry. That is unnatural, because as humans, we're meant to connect with each other. And that's what's so wonderful about the Jedi. They are compassionate. They are empathetic. They are trying to help others. They're not narcissistic and selfish like the Sith. So, but yeah, Chimere was very compelling, and I might have gone there. Yeah. It was very, very tempting. But in the reality, as we all have perhaps had a toxic relationship, is that doesn't feel good over time. Is to be in that kind of toxic relationship or that toxic environment.
Yeah. No, I really agree. I think I don't think we have so many great stories of the Jedi, and I think it is one of the many criticisms and failings of the prequel era Jedi, where they are fearful themselves, so they're just like, they are more apt to be like, lock it down, don't even feel it, don't even think it. We're like Obi-Wan at his best reaches out to Anakin in the Clone Wars era, and it tries to say like, I have this relationship with Satine. It's normal to feel a wide variety of emotions. Let's just not act on them or become obsessed on them. And I think when the Jedi are at their best, what they are advocating is feel your feelings, maybe even write the email, but don't hit send, because that angry email is not going to serve you or, or the person you're interacting with. But the Jedi can become flawed, and it can just turn into a sort of toxic positivity of don't feel that, as opposed to don't act on it. And I think that's the great challenge for Jedi to separate those things, because people should be angry about things. There are personal wounds where it's not logical, but it hurts you, and you have to be honest about it. Or there's a large systemic injustice toward you, and you should be angry about it, and you should take action, but you should not sit in anger. Anger should be a catalyst to say, I need to address this. I need to process this and address it, and not live in it. And I think what was so compelling about Chimere's Chimere in the Acolyte is, I think it was just a phenomenal con job. I think he was like a used car salesman who could flawlessly tell you what was wrong with every car on the lot, except for the one he was selling you, which he doesn't actually tell you anything about. He just tells you why all the other cars are wrong, and in the absence leaves you thinking, this one's great. He doesn't advocate what's great about being a Sith. His own behavior says, like, well, I probably got rejected by a Sith master as well as a Jedi master. I'm sitting here alone anyway, am lonely and desperate for anyone in my life. But he doesn't articulate any of that. It's just what's wrong with the Jedi. And he makes compelling arguments about mistakes Jedi could potentially make. He makes compelling arguments about Jedi mistakes. He makes no argument about what's it good to be about a Sith. He is a con man. He is a con man like we see in the real world with dictators, where it's, here's who you should be angry about all the time. And if you're angry all the time, you're going to be looking for guidance from somebody who knows it all, knows who you should be angry about, and encourages you to stay in that anger forever, which only benefits the con man. Chimere is one of the most successful and powerful parts of the Acolyte. Is it sounds great, and it's an absolute con job, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think there's a ton of truth to that, and this is why I love and just one of your points earlier, Jen, of the Acolyte. Finally, maybe spent some time with, well, let's find out the reasons someone on the Sith side or the dark side might have, legit reasons for them being in this position, right? Like this, I like trying to understand points of views and perspectives of all right, I don't live this life, so what's the issue here? Explain it. I love trying to get to it, but it's like looking at the Maul example. I agree. Anger kept him alive, and I'm not suggesting Darth Maul should have just given up and died, right? Although we talk about the Jedi have the ability to let go. Palpatine is an example of not letting go. Luke's example of letting go in the sequel trilogy. But Maul to me, he survives. He gets his spider legs. He's back and ready to go, and then he just stays there, right? Stasis, no change, and that is where it becomes unhealthy. So even if you want to give him the points of, hey, only anger kept him alive, we shouldn't tell him to just give up. He's alive, but then he takes no responsibility. There's no real self-work from Maul going on. He's no self-work Maul going on of how did I end up here versus what Kenobi put me here. And there's some truth to that, and you understand that, right? You can understand that. The wound of Maul being rejected by the Jedi in the sense of him kind of saying, why I was force sensitive, why wasn't I ever picked up and given the option? Why didn't anyone ask me? Was I no good? And then here comes Palpatine. You're right. They thought you were no good. You should be angry. And perhaps he should be then. But I got you. The con man has come in here and slang his lies.
Yeah, I think to go to the actual Star Wars lore of it, I love the keeping Maul alive. I love that, maybe we have had a few too many abdomen wounds in Star Wars, but I like the idea in Kenobi that Grand Inquisitor says to Reva, like, I can't remember the exact quote, so I'm paraphrasing about, anger is a powerful ally to keep you alive. I deeply paraphrasing. I don't remember the quote, but that sentiment is expressed from the Grand Inquisitor. But yeah, anger, I think, can be a motivator. It can make you go, I'm down and I could just stay down, or I could get mad at, being legitimately wronged, or even mad at a choice I've made, and it's gonna make me stand up, and it's gonna make me get out there and do things. And like, yeah, it's surviving. But then in Star Wars, yeah, it's Maul is so lonely by the time of Rebels. Like, he could have just said, "Hey, Ezra, I'm lonely. I'm gonna stop." I understand that, Ezra. What you want more than anything is the power to stop the Sith, to save yourself and your planet and your galaxy. I want to keep fighting with an old man I've been fighting with for decades, you know, and like the sadness of that it kept him, the anger kept him alive, but it also kept him dead inside. And I don't think Grand Inquisitor ever had a happy day. I think Reva kept herself alive and making a different choice. And I look forward to hearing other stories of Reva who used the anger to stay alive and then realized, I don't want to live in it. How would killing this child, you know, move me forward? And I think she made a choice that served herself instead of served anger. Jennifer, how do you feel about this Star Wars storytelling of anger being used to keep Darksiders alive?
Yeah, with Maul, I think it's great that he kept himself alive using his anger, but it caused him to basically self-destruct and become so tunnel vision and consumed with Kenobi that it's like, well, what good is it? You can't even live your life without thinking about this guy. So it's like, you know, I get angry sometimes and I'll go for a run. Well, that's a healthier way for me to do it. Like when people are like, yeah, you can't do this, you can't do that. I'm like, okay, I'm going to do it. Bad self-destructiveness was people telling me I couldn't do acting, and I stayed in it for a little bit too long because I'm like, damn, I'm going to prove it. But guess what? At some point, it's like, oh, I became a little self-destructive, and I finally had to get myself out of there. So, you know, that's, yeah, there we go. There's my stand-up comedy version of that. I got a lot of acting stories where people were telling you no and saying horrible things about you, and you really having to channel that anger and that, oh no, I'm going to show you, but to what cost? Who cares what these people think, right?
Yeah,
like, I'm not going to cause myself to self-destruct or to make bad choices just because somebody is insecure or has some power trip that they're not living my life. And so you get to a certain point where if I was Maul, I'd go, you know, live my spider leg days somewhere else.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting that we're focusing mostly on sort of righteous rage, where, you know, if we posted on "Am I the Asshole?" most people would agree we've been rightfully wronged. Because I think when we're thinking through the Sith perspective, it's natural for us to go like, well, do they have an argument? Well, what's a time where I've been really angry because I've been wronged and I need to set things right? But I think a powerful part of the Star Wars story too is going to Yoda's quote of "Fear leads to anger, anger leads to hate, hate leads to suffering." And I thought of some of the times in my life where I've felt righteously angry, but really what it's been is I have a scar from trauma from when I was a kid. I got rejected a lot. So then if somebody talks down to me in a way where I feel judged, I feel rejected, sometimes I'm not entirely rational about like, oh, that person didn't even mean it. But because of that fear of rejection from my own trauma, my instinct is anger. And that's not about a righteous, like, you know, I'm systemically being, you know, held back. It's not about an asshole comedy booker. It's about I'm mistaking my fear for righteous anger. And then that's when we're really hurting ourselves. When I look back of like times I've got angry, I'm like, maybe even I had a little legitimate reason to be angry, but the way I handled it only caused more harm for myself. I go back to that Yoda quote of, it's not righteous. It's, I don't want to feel the fear, so I cover it with anger. And I think that's a part of the Sith truth that is not on the pamphlet. And I think we see that a lot in Vader's story of, I don't want to deal with the pain that maybe I failed at being a Jedi. I don't want to deal with the pain that I became exactly the person that Padme would never want me to be. I cannot look at the fear of that truth that I failed her. So I'm going to find absolutely everyone in the galaxy to blame. It's all Watto's fault. It's all Obi-Wan Kenobi's fault. You know, it's the Tuskens. It's anyone but his fault, all to avoid the fear and the pain of the honesty of his own wounds.
Yeah. And yeah, I like, you know, the prequel era Jedi, like you said, maybe are on their own, circles of fear, and they're trying to get out of it there. But I do think there's something to the Jedi philosophy. This letting go is not ignoring it. Like you said, Joseph, really the toxic positivity of this water's not boiling. What are you talking about? No, you got to deal with what's simmering, what's boiling. And I never want to dangerously generalize with real world conversations, but like someone who's battled depression, there's those times where I'm just like, no, you need to sit with, you need to acknowledge that you're depressed. You acknowledge what it is and what's causing it. And at times the idea of letting go is to let go, fear, doubt, whatever it might be there. And again, generalization, it's real hard in the real world. Seek help, seek therapy, seek medicine if you need it. But like, I want to give the Jedi credit for some of the stuff. Yoda talking to Anakin of mourn them, do not miss them, do not, does not mean you don't acknowledge that they pass, but you just have to let that part of it go. Carry them with you in your heart, but don't sit there. That's where the problems. You lose yourself. Going to the anger example, I started that morning angry. That booker wanted me to just do hacky, literally said, you should just do hacky sex jokes. And I could have been like, I'm going to show him. You want hacky sex jokes? I'm going to give it to you. But that's not me. So I would have lost myself if I took the stage like that, as opposed to, no, I'm going to double down and make the improvements I need, because the first 2 nights were up and down. Some big laughs and some big silences. So let's figure that out versus I'll show you. I'll give you all the hack jokes in the world. That's not music comic. So, yeah, that's where I go, where you want to acknowledge, you want to sit with it, but you want to move forward as best you can.
Yep.
Let it go.
Hey, I did a comedy sketch in 1999 that was combining Star Wars and comedy advice, and I had Luke Skywalker ask Yoda, "Are dick and butt jokes more powerful?" And he said, "No, quicker, easier, more seductive." So I'm glad you did not turn into Darth Dick joke again. The final thing we need to address, which is very important, is if the dark side is so bad, why does Sheev Palpatine, Darth Sidious, the Emperor, smile so much? Jennifer, what's your take on Sheev smiling real big and showing us all those diseased, rotten teeth of his?
I mean, I think he does relish in being manipulative and being, sadistic, and he's an evil person who really enjoys being evil. And so I think that we see that in his smile, and sometimes a smile is a little bit more presentational, performative, right? To get what he wants from the other person, to disarm them, right? But I do think he's enjoying it. He sees everyone as his little pawns, and he sees himself as this great big, overlord, if you will. So yeah, I that's what makes him so fun, is that he does seem to be relishing every single moment, like a true stock villain.
Ken, what do you think of the mystery of Sheev's smile?
Here's the thing. I think he is happy. I think he is. I think that's because he's bought the lie on every level, and he's the one slanging those lies to begin with. But he succeeded, right? Unlimited power. He got it. So he feels as though he won. I think it's a legit happiness. It's the biggest lie he's believing, but I think it is, and I think that so you could get lost in that and go, well, look at him. And I'm not even suggesting this question is saying that, but you could be like, I mean, I don't know. He seems pretty content. I think he is, but it's completely false. The rug gets pulled out of underneath him many times, right? And that's why I love some of my favorite Sheev moments are Rise of Skywalker. Because this is someone who is still selling himself the lies up until the moment where Rey says, "You want me to hate, but I won't." I think in his head he thinks, "Well, of course you are, because look how great I am." It's the big final lie.
Yeah. No, I really agree. One of the things I love about him is he is the most successful Sith that we get to see in a lot of ways, but he's still full of fear. His first thought is when he turns Anakin is, you got to go kill all the Jedi, even the kids. The Jedi are relentless. I love the honesty in that line of like, they're never going to stop coming for us. The hologram appearance in Empire Strikes Back is like the son of Anakin Skywalker. He could get us. He is constantly, his truth is that he is constantly afraid of losing his power. All he does is grab for more while fearing he's going to lose what he has. In the few moments of joy he gets is when someone right in front of him is being caused pain. To me, that's not like, look at that guy walking down the street with a smile on his face. What's he doing? Kicking a puppy. That's the only thing that makes him smile. What a happy guy.
What a happy guy.
I love the shot of him with the, like, isn't this delightful? When Yoda's there, you know, smoking from lightning pain. That's what makes him happy. The idea, you know, in Return of the Jedi, the big cackle. If everything is, you know, going as I have foreseen, is delight that I'm going to draw him into a trap and I'm going to turn your son to the dark side. It's the only thing that makes him happy is causing other people pain, which is not a kind of happiness I'm personally in search of.
So watch some of those true crime documentaries as I have, unfortunately. It's terrifying. It's terrifying when you see those types of people.
Yeah.
That's terrifying.
Yep.
Palpatine's much more fun.
Well, we're going to take a quick break and we're going to talk more of the fun of Palpatine with a different question. Thank you, Lack of Response, for this great detailed question. I think it's an important one to look at because it's one of the most important parts of Star Wars. All right, back in a moment. And we have returned to continue our dark side themed episode of Cues of the Force. We had a great in-depth conversation about the true nature of the dark side. And now we have a little bit of a fun question from Patreon user Zach Martin, who says, ForceCenter, hello. This question is inspired by your, at the time of this question, recent Subjective Wars episode and your brief comments on how Palpatine says the name Mustafa. Later that day, I had Return of the Jedi on, and I realized the performance gets overlooked some, especially as we've gotten bigger, pulpier Sheev appearances since then. But Ian McDiarmid really chews the scenery in that throne room. So for the sake of getting more Palpatine impressions, I ask, what is your favorite example of Ian McDiarmid making a whole meal out of playing Palpatine? It could be a whole performance or just a particular line reading. I'm thinking of live-action performances specifically. It seems to me the third movie in each trilogy gives us a full Palpatine experience. Right. But if you have examples from McDiarmid's voice work, including Fortnite, fair game. I'm just in the mood, says Zach, to appreciate Ian McDiarmid's performance as the Emperor. Currently, my vote is split between the So Be It Jedi from Return of the Jedi, and I have waited a long time for this, my little green friend from Revenge of the Sith. So that is Zach's question, just setting us up to share our favorite Ian McDiarmid moments, our most scenery-chewing Palpatine moments. I feel like Ken and I have talked about this a lot, but Jennifer, where does Palpatine rank in your sort of love of Star Wars? Do you love his scenery-chewing performances?
I love it. I mean, the So Be It Jedi. Oh, so great. The do it. I do it that daily, or at least I use the meme daily. But the scene that comes to mind that I think is just brilliant is the Revenge of the Sith opera scene, where he really starts off kind of casual and offhand, and then it's like a predator circling his prey, right? Weaving this web until finally towards the end he gets pulpier and pulpier, and then when he like does that head turn, not from a Jedi. Oh so my gosh, it's like so over the top and yet so truthful to this character, and the way that Ian McDiarmid delivers the line is the only way that he could do it, right? It's just how he's able to present this over-the-top villain as very authentic and truthful. That is masterful. It's why we love this character so much.
Yeah. I love to kind of joke about the scenery chewing, but I think the reason it works is it's all truthful. It's an acknowledgement of, well, this is the genre. I'm an evil space wizard. I am a nightmare from the dark woods that many authors wrote fundamental myths about. The glowing yellow eyes and the temptation, and I'm talking like I'm a nice grandpa, but it is obvious I'm a horrible monster you should not approach in the woods, but I'm trying to lie to you. I think there's an honesty and a deep understanding of, it's not like he's having a laugh because it's cheap B-movie sci-fi. He's sinking into the depth of that idea of the fantasy figure of the evil grandfather who's tempting you with candy, and you don't want to take that candy. And I think as an actor, everything we were talking about, in the first half of the episode about like the truth of the dark side, he's playing those things, right? even if it's the biggest, pulpiest line, it comes across as true, because what that character wants is unnatural power. That is a character who's waited decades and hid his true face for decades, and here's a moment where he can just let it all out. One of the biggest swings, perhaps, in the history of cinema, but it works because it's true, and you can trace why the character is that way. So as much as I love kind of joking about some of his really big choices, I do think they work because they're truthful. Ken, what are your big picture opinions about Ian McDiarmid's performance and how it is both funny but still works?
It's delightful at every level. We need him at the center of it all. And yeah, I'm ready to maybe, I get it, not have Palpatine show up and everything. I understand some of the problems with Rise of Skywalker that people had. I was just so happy to buy a ticket to the McDiarmid show one more time because it's got some of my favorite moments. And I think it makes sense thematically. Again, talking about not letting go, dark side versus light side, but just all those things there. And I agree with you. It's truth. Going back to earlier, he is legitimately happy. It might be wrong. He might be kicking that dog, and we don't want him to be happy, but he is playing the truth. And I think one of George's correct, we always talk about him being bad with actors and directing and all those kind of things, some of that legit, but one of his best decisions as director was to tell Ian McDiarmid, no, bigger. Unlimited power is the biggest thing you can do right now. You have achieved it. You've won. You've completed 100% completion of your video game is this moment. And you have unlimited power. And for even McDiarmid going, okay, who can trust them, right? Because there's some great interviews of him going, yeah, George kept saying more. So I went as big as I could. I'm paraphrasing the interviews, of course, but they're out there. So that's my overall view of yeah, you're right. He's playing what Palpatine thinks is the win. And it's honest and it's raw. And it just has led to some wonderful, memeable moments for 40 plus years now.
Yeah, no, and sometimes when he tells that story, he adds I was fairly certain I would never work again, but I wanted to do what the director asked of me. It felt so wrong. He makes those huge choices, but he does make those subtle choices. Like even in the opera scene, in the prequels, the way he, really plays with the mask of Sheev Palpatine, and he's really still trying to be Sheev Palpatine in that opera scene. But when he's thinking about Darth Plagueis, the voice does drop into a little bit into real Palpatine, particularly on the ironic. He could save others from death, but not himself. It's he can't help himself. Yeah,
the memories are in his head. Oh, did I kill him?
Did I stab your heart? Henceforth. So let's talk about some favorite lines. I wrote a favorite line from every movie. I don't know if I'll say all of them because we have other things to do in life. But Jennifer, what are a few favorite moments that jump out to you?
Yeah, the "So be it" Jedi, all of Return of the Jedi. Like I said, do it. Everything he says is just, it's funny. I love it. Okay, share your list.
Oh yeah. I like I'll share a couple. I want to give some special shout outs to some of his not as big appearances. There's the Empire Strikes Back special edition that he was added to and son added to later on, which can be controversial for some fans. And replacing the great Clive Revel, who did a great job with the voice. But I love it when Vader says, if Luke could be turned, he would be a powerful ally. And just the way he delivers, "Can it be done?" I think of that often when somebody asks me, do you think that'll work? And "Can it be done?" The Return of the Jedi is just so hard, but I just love the variety when he does the folksy, friendly, "I'm afraid the deflector shield will be quite operational when you're..." It's wow. Yeah. Wow. If somebody was trying to get me to turn to the dark side, doing a little sing-songy voice like that would be okay, I believe in pacifism, but I'm really tempted. What you know. Phantom Menace, also so rich, but I will always enjoy. I will make it legal. It's so great. So those are a few. Ken, where does your list go?
Yeah, all over the place. And I because again, we're suckers for a good Palpatine impersonation or a bad one. I don't like.
Doesn't even matter.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Let's just do an hour of Palpatine voices. It's the best. I try to go to some that we haven't discussed before, or at least I felt I haven't discussed before. Also, I do want to start with "So Be It, Jedi," one of the all-time great lines. What I love, the subtext there, and we generally try to keep it PG here, but you dropped an A-bomb, Joseph. I'll drop this one. I think "So Be It, Jedi" is "So be it, you little shit." Like, I think that's what it is. It's always been that to me, and I think it just reads like that. I love that one there. I go to the Phantom Menace. It's so small, and it's a meme, a surprise to be sure, but a welcome one.
Oh,
it's all part of his plan, but you talk about the mask of Sheev versus Sidious, right? He's in the Sheev costume, and it maybe is all going according to his plan anyways, right? He is the Phantom Menace of it all, but he can't hide this, like, but it's pretty cool, right? Like, this is working. I don't know, this is working, because he has those moments where, we talk a lot about Padme going, "Hey, this is your arena. I'm going to go back to mine." I think there's a moment of oopsie. And then he spins it. And that plays out in the Clone Wars animated series where Padme is his true arch nemesis and rival. But you're talking about some too of just like, gotta be done, is him kind of like, oh, okay, yeah, that works for me too. Okay, yeah, that's plan C, but I got it. So I love those kind of moments. I want to shout out, it's more than just one quote, but I want to shout out McDiarmid coming back for Bad Batch and that Rampart episode with the great alarm signaling the Emperor has arrived to settle this pointless political debate, and he spins it all around, blames the clones, gets what he wants, and does it in this like and scene kind of vibe. I love that Palpatine moment.
Yeah, no, those are some really great points. We don't get a lot of Darth Sidious in Attack the Clones. We get a lot of great Sheev, and it's also a meme, but I think it is for a reason. I love democracy. It's so like he's enjoying himself on that one. He's so full of it. Do It is classic in Revenge of the Sith. As I have waited a long time for this, and the absolute eternity that he takes to say "my little green friend." Not even going to do the impression again because it takes so long to do accurately. I absolutely love that. The lie of "and we shall have peace." Also a great one. Rise of Skywalker. He's phenomenal in Rise of Skywalker. I know it's not for everyone. I know the relationship is not for everyone in his return. But sometimes I think if people aren't a huge fan of Rise of Skywalker, if they want a lens to look through it, just watch it for McDiarmid's performance in nothing else. My boy, I made Snoke is classic. The one of my favorite things about him is just the absolute pettiness. One of the ways you're like, I don't think I actually want to be that guy, because I don't want to be that incredibly petty. As I fell, so falls the last Skywalker. It's so petty. But perhaps one of my very favorites, because I think it gets back to the absolute core of the character, of the monster in the woods pretending to be a friendly person who would feed you and give you shelter. When Rey walks into that Sith arena and we hear the "long have I waited for my grandchild to come home." Like he's a trustworthy grandpa, and he's not. I love it. That's like a theme statement for Palpatine.
As is, I've died before.
Yes. Anytime he can't be bothered with consonants is a win too.
The first viewing, I remember thinking, oh, they're going right at it, right? Because we had all had our thoughts of it's the spirit of Palpatine, he's a ghost, all those things that would have been valid and all those things. But from the dead speak to we're going right into it. Kylo's going right into it, and just that I've died before worked for me. Of just going, hey, dude, this is over top bonkers. Palpatine's here, let's do it. I love that moment.
Yep. I have to shout out one last highlight for me, because I think it's also just like one of the most amusing Palpatine moments, and that is Ian McDiarmid choosing to return for Obi-Wan Kenobi, in saying to Vader, the tortured half robot person that he has made to sit on a throne of pain on a lava planet, saying, "You seem agitated, my friend," as if your entire goal in life has not been to make this man feel agitated for the last decade. And you're like, Why are you so agitated? After you've been chewed up by Kenobi again, and you're sitting there on your lava planet of pain, and you're saying, I got to go after Kenobi? I'm like, well, why? Calm down. You know how it's sometimes like the most angering thing that anyone can say to you is calm down? It feels like he knows exactly what he's doing.
I was going to throw in one of my favorite moments that we love celebrating here is Ash Soka, when he just McDiarmid reads it wrong in Rebels. But that's a great one to end on, Joseph, because it ties into what we were talking about earlier, the lie and the anger and all those things of you should really lean into this. It'll be productive for you. And here he is going, you seem angry. What? Why are you angry? I've been telling you your whole life, be angry, do it. Why?
Yeah.
You agitated?
Yeah.
Wrong? You talk
Smile,
about
Vader. Smile.
Yeah, smile. Why don't you smile more?
You're prettier when you smile under the helmet, Anakin. Smile. Yeah. Any final thoughts from you, Jennifer, on the beauty of Ian McDiarmid?
Wow, he's the ultimate gaslighter. I love it. I mean, there's just so many. I had forgotten all these things, and now I have to go back and rewatch them.
There you go.
Wonderful.
There you go.
All right. Well, that is our big look at the dark side on this episode of Cues of the Force, from the true horror of it to the fun of getting to watch it via Sheev Palpatine, Darth Sidious. Ken, you want to take us home?
I do. I want to take us home. We are ForceCenter. We're on social media at ForceCenter Pod. Includes Instagram. Facebook page is ForceCenter Podcast. On YouTube over here, hey, subscribe. Do that thing. We're available a lot of spots as a podcast. Just search. You'll find us. Merch available at tpublic.com/user/ForceCenter. For now, maybe we'll do an upgrade. I got a thought. I got a business thought. It just hit me. Patreon.com/ForceCenter. That's where you can support us directly. Get into that Discord where you could just go in and just leave your Palpatine memes from now to the end of days. Follow me at Ken Napzok. My website, kennapzok.com, is information on all things I do, including upcoming comedy shows like One Night Only in San Francisco at the Lost Church. Nick Scarpino putting on a big show. Mark Ellis, myself, and Josh McCouga returning to the stage. Jen, where can they find you?
You can find me on our Discord. I hear it pinging in the background right now. People are chatting. I love it. You can find me also on all the social media sites at Jennifer Landa or TikTok at Jennifer Landa 1138.
There you go, Joseph. Take us home. Take us home.
Take us home. Henceforth, you can find me on all the social media at Joseph Scrimshaw. You can check out my weekly blog of Finish Your Monsters if you want. You could sign up for that on my website if you like, josephscrimshaw.com. Thank you, everyone, for the great questions. More A's coming to go along with the Q's. But for now, this has been Q's of the Force.